Okay, thanks again for everybody for joining. We're just going to let people in as they show up. As I mentioned earlier, these calls are really almost like live podcasts. We're going to have a conversation with 15 or 20 of us, but then the recording is going to go out to 3,000 people. And here at Tether, we are brand agnostic and we are marketplace agnostic, meaning we have agents from all over the country and we have agents from every brand you could possibly think of. So as we have this conversation, just it's going to be a wonderful time to learn about different people and different markets and different things going on in the industry. And it's going to be shared everywhere. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited that you're all here. Now, some housekeeping things. As I mentioned, if I haven't already, if you can turn your camera on, please do, because we want to see you. And just to start, can you go just let's get the old fingers going. Can you go into the chat and just put it in the marketplace you're in. Where are you from? Where you dialing in from? Just put it into the chat. We'll fill that up here in a real short amount of time, I'm sure. And that will kind of help us know kind of who we're there we go. We got Dallas coming in. This is like anybody from the Midwest remember Romper Room, the kids show Romper Room. I see Pat and I see Fernanda. This is what that says. There we go. Georgia, Dallas, Twin Falls. Great. Let us know where you're calling in from. Okay. So we're going to have an open conversation on the industry. This is going to be us talking. What are you seeing out there? What are you feeling? You're going to be able to share, but I guarantee you're going to take at least two things away from this call that you didn't know, and I'll bet you'll be able to implement in your business. So this is going to be a wonderful way to share and a wonderful way to learn. Um, Before we get started with that, though, I always like to kick these calls off and invite one of our leaders of Tether to come in and talk just a little bit about what's going on with Tether. And so, in just a couple of minutes on the front of this, because you guys are all Tether users, we've got Scott Martin. He's one of the co-founders. You've met Vanessa, his wife, the other co-founder. Scott's our CEO, and I've asked Scott to just talk about 2025 just in a real quick nugget,
Yeah.
and then what's coming up in 2026. Scott, welcome. Give us a few words.
Thank you. Great to see all of you. 2025, for Tether was a very interesting time. We were a new company coming into the real estate world and really had difficulty making connections with anyone. We reached out to NAR multiple times and kind of had some difficult, like just didn't get a lot of responses. We were talking with associations, but really weren't getting a lot of traffic. And so then we were involved in the IOI pitch battle that NAR had to kind of review different technologies in the industry. And we were able to win that. And that really gave us a launching point where people started like looking at our company. We won the T360 technology pitch battle. And that again kind of gave us some exposure. Ultimately, the result of that is NAR did invest in Tether, and that changed everything for us. So through their investment arm Reach, they came in and helped us really kind of hone in what we thought was a great, platform and make it fit within the real estate world. So since that time, February of 2025, we've been able to connect with 17 associations. Nine associations pay for it for their members. It's a member paid benefit. We work with one large MLS. And we've seen our growth, our average growth last year was 89% per month. And so we now have users in all 50 states. And it's just exciting to see it grow. One of the things we take very seriously is feedback. So from feedback from everyone, we got a lot of feedback early on about our mileage tracker. So we invested in expanding that. And what we're seeing is that people are utilizing that mileage tracker every day. And so that's great to see. We invested in our expense tracker and integrated some AI. So you'll see some things that we're testing right now where you can take a picture of your receipt and it'll populate some of the
Eh,
data. It's not
Yep.
100% right yet. I'm sorry, Brennan.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. If you've
Yeah.
used or if you know that we have a mileage tracker, because some of you might have joined before we rolled that feature out, raise your hand if you know we have a mileage tracker and maybe even have used it. Just throw your hand up in there because there
Oh.
might be. And if you haven't, and you're spending $150 a year on mileage trackers, you don't need to. You have the world's best mileage tracker already inside Tether for free, unlimited drives. It'll change your life. So if you haven't seen that, give it a shot. Okay, Scott,
I don't
sorry.
know if we can say
Conti-
it's the world's best, but we have a great mileage tracker. It works
I think we
amazing.
can. I think we
So,
can.
so one of the things, this came from feedback from a realtor. A realtor, originally we had it set up so that during your showings, it would track the miles and the time that you spend with that client and tie to that client. And a realtor in Twin Falls, Idaho, where I live, said, "That's dumb. Why would we have two mileage trackers?" And I said, "Oh, that makes sense." So we started
Awesome.
working on, it took about 90 days to develop out this improvement. Because we're a safety app, we have the ability to track you at all times if you hit that feature. So because of that, it automatically tracks where you go. You go into your mileage tracking, you swipe it left for personal, right for business. And that, as we see where people are using the app, safety doesn't happen every day, but they're using that mileage tracker every single day. So user experience as we roll into 2026, that is our priority. So we take your feedback seriously. So please provide it. If you're having issues or you think of a betterment, all of these features have really come from user feedback. You know,
Awesome.
do you want me to talk about some of the things we're going to do in 2026?
Yeah, just
Couple.
real quickly highlight. Yep.
Okay. Some highlights, user experience. We're working on some integration to make the use easier. So we're working on integration of showing services. We're currently talking with Broker Bay and with Showing Time about integrating those two services within the showing feature to make it simple. Access control, we're currently talking with Supra so that you could use one platform to schedule it. You've got safety operating in the back. When you get to the property, access control, a timer start. So really just working on some of those things, data
Awesome.
improvements, going deeper with address data, and improving our filtering methods. So that's kind of a high level.
Yeah, great stuff, Scott. We're always innovating and always taking feedback. We're at the stage as a company now where we're starting to grow quickly, but we're small enough still where we can make changes when you have suggestions. So please, great point, Scott. Please keep those details and those things coming. So awesome. Okay, well, let's get right into it. Let's get into this conversation. I'm going to call on some people, so you guys be ready. And the first question I'm going to have when we call on you is give us 60 seconds on your market. Like, what's going on in your market? How's it feeling right now? And then I'm going to do a follow-up question. I don't even know exactly what I'm going to ask on the follow-up question, but I'm going to start with JB Hayes, who was good enough to dial in from, I think, a listing in Dallas, which I've given that one away. JB, tell us about the market. Say a few words about the listing if you like. And what did you find was like the biggest takeaway from what happened in real estate in 2025?
I think, well, I'm going into preview for a buyer, an off market. That's why I'm here. Um, Dallas has different pockets, and some are really slow. Like I was just looking at one of our reports, and in the luxury market, like $1 million and over, there's more than 6 months in inventory. And over the last few years, it was basically multiple offers, pay for everything and more to get a house. But now buyers can be more selective. They can find the right neighborhood, they can find the right street. It's not just I have to get a home in the right school district. There are townhomes and condos, that market. One of the they use it like the Knox district. They said that there's like 14 months of inventory. We've got builders that are wheeling and dealing their inventory off market and just keeping some in MLS
Mm.
because the pricing is going backwards. There's new construction in my neighborhood that was selling in the mid 600s during the crazy times, 2022, 2023. They're finishing out this 34 unit project and they're selling them at 440. Like I'm
Oh
getting
my gosh,
investors, I'm
that's a
getting,
big.
and it's new construction and it's good and it's in an up and coming area. So it is going to have it will have definitely equity. So it's just really frustrating because people, if they have to sell, they might not make money, especially if they bought during the boom. But buyers can be selective. And sellers have to be more creative, and you can't just put it in MLS. You actually have to do the work. And I have
Is
gone from doing like just reels on listings to doing reels, video, follow up stuff, drone. I spend a lot of money on the listings because you got to compete.
is okay, so that's a great point. And raise your hand out there, just or put in something in the chat. If you've been spending more money or working harder to get listings sold, and we may come to you in a second. Um, but you touched on a good point, and we're going to look at some statistics. I've actually got some stats nationwide and by market we're going to look at as a group. But how do you manage, JB? How do you manage seller expectation in a shifting market, right? It's always a challenge when the seller mentality maybe hasn't quite caught up with the realities of a shifting market. So how do you handle expectations?
It's really important to share data with them weekly. And if they're the kind of people that like phone calls, I'm actually getting a showing request right now from one of my listings. Um,
Congratulations.
if they, I like to send them data, and then I'll say, let's schedule a call. Let's talk about it. I don't create the data. I just report the data. What the market is doing is what the market is doing. I'm not making it up. So those that are frustrated, I try to chat with other agents, and I say, how many showings have you had? Specifically, like I live in a high rise, so I talk to the other agents in the high rise. I talk to other agents that sell in my neighborhood. Like I work in an area of Dallas where I'm getting like a half duplex. It's 1.6 million, and it's because I sold the other one for 1.44.
Hmm.
And it's not in an inexpensive area, so it's always talking to other agents from other brands and brokerages. Hey, what can we do? Let's try to do open house tours where people are going to all our similar ones. But it is hard and it's frustrating, but it makes me feel
It's
okay that I'm not the only one
it's
suffering out there.
exactly, and you touch on a good point. I found in my career in real estate, the most successful agents over the long period embrace their colleagues, right? I think we're in an industry where, in some regards, everybody's competing against everybody, and I get all that. But when you band together with your, friendly competitors, you feel better because you know you're not on an island. It's a lonely business being a real estate agent, way more lonely than people think. So you're not on an island. But the other thing is, to your point of sharing data with your sellers, is it's also sharing the vibe of other real estate agents, right? I mean, JB, how many times have you said to a seller that needs a little bit of an expectation adjustment that, well, I've talked to nine other sellers and they're all experiencing the same thing, or nine other agents? I mean, isn't that part of the data?
Well, and I did this call yesterday with a seller who's a former realtor. He's retired and he's upset that we haven't sold his place. His mind shift changed when I told him, you've had 5 showings. The other very similar property in our building has had one. we
Yeah.
we do community open houses. That person doesn't always participate. They have had way fewer showings and exposure and visitors, so it made him feel better because even though it didn't feel good to him, it was better than the others. So it's
Well,
really
and that
making
can
sure you communicate because they have to know everything that you do, and those phone calls to your peers are important.
And it can also be, that particular statistic can also be a pathway to, if needed, a price adjustment, right? You've had a lot of showings, we haven't gotten her sold. So, well, that's great insight, JB. And I'm going to stay with you, and then I'm going to start going to some other people, and I'm going to ask some of these questions of you guys. So be ready, because I want to hear about your markets and I want to hear about how you're managing expectation. But give me one, JB, give me one takeaway that you've had, something that has happened in this industry, um, that has been eye-opening in 2025. Anything. That's a tough question, I know. But
Um,
what's jumped
I've
out at you?
really turned to technology more. Like I said, doing the reels, doing the videos, getting it out there, and really tapping into the sharing and the cross sharing. My Instagram following has grown. And it's because that's how people are shopping and using the tools that are out there instead of saying, I'm not going to touch Zillow or I'm not going to touch homes.com. And it's making them work for you.
Yeah.
If
I
if
think
I
that's a
hadn't done that, like I can now send, I have a YouTube channel and I will send potential listings. Here's the best of my listing videos. And I'll literally put together, I have like five or six that are good. I kind of rotate them out,
yeah,
and upgrade them and
such a good
update them.
idea.
And it's like, oh, look at this. I want that.
Right.
I mean, I'm getting that half duplex listing that's going to be 1.6 because the seller had another agent from another brokerage and didn't sell, was under contract, didn't close, and the wife liked my photos and video. It's doing the
That's
work,
so good.
it's having samples, it's making the effort. And I think it really embracing technology probably would have been my biggest takeaway of what I've done. I'm reflecting on 2025.
One thing you anticipate for 2026 in your business that you're going to either do or stop doing, like what do you see the market, what do you see the market kind of moving you towards in 2026? More tech, more of what you just described, or
I think, yes, more of what I've just described, because I do think it's where, I mean, people are on their phones and that's how
yeah,
they're shopping, but it's really not going to be complacent. It's going to be continuing really to use more AI. I already do that. I
yeah.
do not do that for my property write-ups unless it's like in my building and I'm on my 12th thing, because I can tell when somebody says nestled, I know that's AI. I hate that word.
Nobody speaks like that. Do you, who here can guess? Put it in the chat if you think you have an answer. What is the number one tell that somebody has used Chat GPT to write for them? Anybody guess? Just put it in the, there's a whole thing about this. Put it in the chat if you want to take a guess. What is the number one thing that consumers can tell if you use Chat GPT? It's wordy. Yeah. Not nestled isn't a typical, right? It can be a little uh there you go. Samir got it. It's the M dash. If it's got an M dash in it, everybody knows you've used Chat GPT. It's so funny. It's such a big deal that the dude from Chat, Sam Altman, finally came out online like a week ago and said, okay, you can now tell Chat GPT to remove the M dashes. And so that's funny. That's a great point. Okay, who else is using AI in any respect out there? Put it in the chat or raise your hand, either. Any way, shape, or form using AI. And while you're thinking about it, by the way, we're all using AI, whether we actively are doing it or not. Just go in. Anybody done a Google search lately? Anybody here use Google? Well, good Lord, can you even imagine now if Google just gave you a bunch of websites as the answer? No, Google's giving you like a lot of data. Okay, so I'm going to go to um, Samaya, I'm going to go to you next because you were the first person to answer. Thank you. And I'm trying to see if well, you're not on camera, Samaya, but if you would consider putting your camera on, I'll circle back to you because I want to ask you a couple questions. But Samir, I know you've got your camera on. Let me go to you. Where are you from? Give me 60 seconds on the market and one big thing that jumped out in 2025.
uh, in Dallas Fort area. And the market, like JB said, it's a buyer's market, no matter what you do. And inventory is high. The builder is competing with the resale market. And I'm talking outside of Dallas on the suburb.
Right.
We're really, it's the builders are killing it over there.
Can I ask a question, by the way, Samir? Because JB brought it up too. Are you guys, do you have in your market, are you seeing builders are keeping things off market more and more because there's such a need at certain price points? Or are you finding that it's out there on the market and they're just competing against resale on the MLS?
The builders, they are putting in MLS, but their
Okay.
price is amazing. And some of the previous pre-owned home, you cannot, they losing money. And I see some foreclosure because they don't have much equity.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So how long have you been in the business, Samir?
Professionally, around 7 years. Uh,
Okay,
before that,
wonderful.
before that, I was 4 years. I'm an investor. I have our own
Yeah.
properties.
So what has jumped out in 2025 as something that either surprised you or something big shifted in the market? What did you see in 2025? And then I'm going to ask you about next year.
The expectation from the buyers, they even though I tell them wait, uh, buy the house and date the interest rate, even though it's they still want a lower interest rate. Some of them they give up and they said we are what we are and let's jump into the market and
Yeah.
start moving. So their expectation to see a lower interest finally it's coming to an end.
You touched on a great. I asked JB, and I'm going to ask you too about managing seller expectations in a shifting market. There's Samaya. Um, I'm going to ask you that. Thank you for bringing up the point about managing buyer expectations with regards to interest rates. Because what, for 2 years, you've all been battling that, haven't you? I'm going to wait. Rates are going to drop. And you finally, come on, let's go.
You have to manage the seller expectation from the minute the first meeting with them. And when I take either a lease or a sale, I will tell them, hey, the first 2 weeks, let's see what the house is going to be. I'm a data person. I don't find the CMA from the MLS. I do my own comp analysis. I download them into date in the Excel spreadsheet, and I have more flexibility what prediction the
Smart.
market is.
Yeah.
So I'll show them what it's gonna be. I manage it, but I tell them it's not your call. It's the market that's gonna dictate. If I want $2 million, get real. It's not gonna get it. It's what the people are gonna pay. Inventory is high, the competition is high. It is what it is. Then every week, like GB said, I'll talk to them, I'll give them a report. Hey, how many showing you have? How many uh, eyeball that saw your listing and how many calls we have. So
Right.
that set that expectation. I said, if I'm not getting any call, I mean,
Yeah. What
you're
about
probably
20?
high.
What about 2026? What's one thing you anticipate in real estate? Any topic whatsoever. What's one thing you see coming down the road?
The industry and the Federal Reserve and the talk, they said the interest rate is not going to go down.
Yeah,
Uh, so they're meeting today and they are not, I don't believe if they're going to lower by a little bit, but the mortgage rate's not going to change.
it's already priced this in. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and
I
people, they're going to be somebody, they've been holding their home for a long time, they're going to sell. And I think it's going to still a buyer's market next year.
Wonderful. Thank you for that input. Okay, so we're going to go to Samaya next, and then we're going to pause, and I'm going to show you guys some data that just came out, and I'll give you the link if you want to use it yourself. It's actually fairly jaw-dropping data if you have not seen this report. Um, and but then we'll go from there. So first, Samaya, hi,
Hi.
and tell
I
us where
gotta
you're
correct
from.
you, Brennan. It's Samia.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, good. Samia, thank you.
Yes,
Where are you
Samia.
from? Where are you
I'm
from?
in Orlando, uh,
Okay,
Orlando,
wonderful.
Florida. And
What's going on there?
ooh, well, um, it is a buyer's market. It has slowed down. A lot of the builders have put a halt. Um, as far as, they do control the rate that they give. They try to entice with this lower rate. So I've experienced that. But I have like buyers who were relocating from other states and they didn't do anything over the summer. And then I have two couples that actually did, and they're reaping the benefits. Even though the market is slow, they don't plan to sell anytime soon. So they're actually in a great space. The other family is like, They didn't do anything in the summer, so now it's really uncertain. So even
Right.
though the prices are going down, they still feel nervous because it's not enough momentum to make them feel motivated. I don't know if it makes sense. Plus, it's a holiday.
No, yeah, for sure. It absolutely makes sense. And that's managing seller expectations at even a different level, um, or buyer expectations at a
Yeah,
different
buyer.
level. I
These are
love,
the buyers.
yeah,
I didn't get to the
yeah,
sellers yet, but I'll get there.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
on the seller side, it's more of a their I always have the conversation of what's their motivation to sell overall. I really dive in and I want them to commit to what's their reason. And then I hone in on that. Because if you're holding a property and you have their holding costs, that's what is the expense that you might be trying to gain with the sale.
Right.
It's an offset. So we do that math. As far as being able to have an understanding on their, where how they're motivated. And then preparing the house. And if they're not really willing to go in and commit to that, it's like maybe that listing is not for me because it's only going to waste your time. I've been in the
Yeah.
business for over, I would say, almost 20 years now, and it's always the same thing. It's overpriced, it sits there, then they blame you. So I figure let's get to it up front and commit to basically because there's the professionals we want to go in and really have a plan so that
Yeah.
it can get sold. So
I love,
but
I love that. I'm going to pause for just a second. There's two things that I really took from that I think are great. And some of you guys may be doing this. I think a lot of times in that seller conversation, it's about the price of their home and what they're going to get for it. But what maybe sometimes doesn't happen that you mentioned is the math of what the holding cost on that property is going to be. If you,
mhm.
I think that's a really smart move. And I think something that probably people don't think about enough. And the second thing you mentioned, and you guys are all experienced agents, is not taking a listing. Raise your hand if you have not taken a listing in the last 12 months. I'll bet you
Well,
all the hands
I
are
can
going up.
say that I've taken, but I've really I put in because I don't want to be contradicting, but it's true. We want the sale, right? And when the market's slow, sometimes we get in a space where we get what we can get, right? So, but I look at it like that's the time to put in forms and processes that help us out. Like say for instance, if it is close to overpriced, now we have a process in there that says by this time we're going to drop the price. Or
There you go.
if it doesn't sell, like we turn it back around to where we're back empowered because if we just do whatever the seller says because we want the listing, it's kind of like we're shooting ourselves in the foot because we're going to look like we don't know what we're doing in the long run. So it
Yeah.
has to, thus when those processes have to be in place. And then we end up spending a lot of money too, because now that listing, we have to put up the money. So even though the seller is overpriced, we're the one with that expense
Well,
that they're trying to get the most money from.
it's exactly right. It's exactly what JB was saying earlier. We're all working harder and we're all spending more money, whether it's out of
Mhm.
pocket money or whether it's your time, which is worth more than out of pocket money to get
Right.
these listings sold. So if we're way out of whack on the listing price and it's going to expire and your brand and mental health is going to take a hit anyway. Okay, thank you. All right, real quickly, one thing that stood out to you in 2025 and one thing you anticipate in 2026.
Well, I've kind of shifted my how I'm going after listings because of the distressed sellers. There's a lot of distressed sellers, and they're not just stressed within the house. Making their payment. This is the data that I've been seeing a trend where they're behind in there because they're overextended on their credit, so they can't refinance. So they're in a position where the house has a lot of equity, but they can't pull the equity because of maybe they missed a payment because they're kind of like, they're
Yeah.
close. They're not quite foreclosing. So that's why I said it's very important for our consultations for us to get in. And those are hard questions because you don't want to meet somebody for the first time and then you're asking all these questions that
Right.
lead into are you in a distressed situation? But you can research it on your own and know it up front. And then when you have the conversation, it's more like you're asking those indirect questions that give you
Yeah,
confirmation. So that's
it's
what I've
great.
been doing. I just go after, and
I love it.
I'll see that there's an opportunity there, and they have to do something. So I just come with a solution. Like I'm
I
coming
love it.
there as a person that, okay, I'm a professional. I'm here to solve your problems, and I'm finding how by basically our conversation. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, we're going to take a pause in the back and forth, and then we're going to get back into it. But I wanted to share a resource. Eh, we're all data experts, or at least like a lot of data, and there's a lot of different ways to measure what's going on, right? We all know that post-COVID prices went up everywhere, and anywhere from 40 to 70%, depending on where in the country you are. We also know that in the last 12 months, depending where you are in the country, prices have started to retreat. Now, that doesn't mean over the 5 year post COVID period they've gone down. It just means they've gone down in the last year. Austin, Texas is the perfect example. Austin, and I don't know if this is still the case, has had the single largest 1 year price decline of any market in America, of the top 50 markets. But over 5 years since COVID, it's still done very well. But this is a new way to look at this, and so this is from Zillow, and we're not going to get into our opinions on Zillow. Some of them have wonderful opinions, and some maybe have had alternative opinions. I'll tell you, there's a lot of great things about the data that Zillow puts out, and this is one of these. And I'll be happy to give you guys the link. Um, it's a really interesting way, and it talks about the decline spread. And really, what you get into here are these interactive things that say, in this particular case, as of this year, 1 year, as of October, 53% of homes have lost value. And that's an interesting way to look at this thing. That's nationwide, and essentially that says that in the last 12 months, 53% of the homes have come off their peak. But what's interesting about this, and I hope you can see this, you can pick any market in America and you can get that number. So, to kind of everybody's point about, I don't know why I'm scrolling, scrolling to Buffalo, New York for some reason. Um, because Buffalo's in the Northeast, and the Northeast has been doing really well in the last year, relatively speaking. There's still 15% of the homes have seen a decline, but it's not that 53% that's nationwide. And if you go to something like I don't know, I'm just guessing here, um, Phoenix, 87%. So you can do this for your market. And you can actually, we got a lot of Dallas folks on the call today, which is our number one tether market. We like to say people are safer in Dallas than anywhere in the country. 87% of agents, or of properties, saw a decline. You can get into things like this. This is the next chart. You can actually hover over a market, and it'll tell you what the number is. And then you can zoom in and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought it was an interesting way to look at the stats. Here's the last one. This is the percentage down from the peak, right? The peak being June of 2021, um, on average, 9.7% drawdown off the peak. And again, you can do this. Here, let's do this because I mentioned it. If I could spell, look at that. There you go. There's Austin. 20.5% drawdown off the peak. And that's the mindset they're in. They always are at the peak, right? And so having data like this is kind of it's not the traditional way you're looking at it. It's just a different way. And I think an interesting way to frame the comment. So I should even ask, um, do you guys want this link? Will anybody see value if I put the link in the chat? I mean, it's public. Anybody can use it anytime. Raise your hand if you want it.
Yes, I'll
Or
take
just,
it. Well, oh,
okay,
sorry. You say
okay.
raise your hand.
Yeah, no, no, no. Either way,
All
you
right.
want. Okay, okay. Hold on. Let me figure out. This is really testing my. This is really testing my skills. Um, okay, I think I did it. I think I put it in the chat. Scott Martin, our CEO, was like enthusiastically, he wants that link. It is kind of fascinating data. Okay, well, there you go. Now you can use it at your heart's content. Now, hopefully, it helps you in framing those seller conversations. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, the market, your market. By the way, is there anybody else that wants to share on their market or anything that we've talked about, something that they're seeing change? Pat or Linda or Ron or Rahita, anybody else want to jump in? I'd be happy to give you a minute to chat about it. Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. I don't want to put you on the spot. Okay. No problem. All right, Pat, good. We've got a brave soul. Pat Morgan, if you could unmute yourself. Tell us quickly about your market first, and then I'll get into these next questions. And then we're going to spend the last 15 minutes talking about safety in a kind of a different way. So go ahead, Pat.
I'm in the Dallas area also, and I'm experiencing likewise with the other two agents in Dallas that people are just waiting. Even with the new homes offering reduced interest rates and paying closing costs, a lot of people still are not just jumping on and buying a new home. So,
Yeah. How about, do you work primarily with sellers or buyers or both?
actually, I enjoy working with buyers better. I do list some, so it's
Yeah,
affected my business also being a buyer's agent.
it's a pretty good gig these days.
Mhm.
It's maybe been a challenging one the last 4 or 5 years, but yeah. And so how have you been managing your buyers on expectations? Because maybe just like sellers aren't quite ready to get to the reality of pricing, buyers might be I guess, over assuming or overreaching on getting a deal and undershooting properties. What do you think?
Right. And some are not qualifying just due to debt ratios and similar to that.
Yeah, interesting. How long have you been in the business, Pat?
Actually, I did a lot of investing in the low, 2000 to 2009
Yeah,
when we kind of crashed and I had several rentals. I was able to pull through it, but then I started working as an agent
yeah,
primarily.
good for you. And what's one, I mean, anybody that's been in the business, let's say 20 years, and I have, um, you probably at 5 points in the last 20 years could have said, I've never seen the market change this much or the industry change this much.
I
You could have
know.
said it in '08. You could have said it in COVID. You could have said it about 3 times since then, since the NAR settlement. You could have said it now. It's just, all that. So, but in your words, Pat, what's been the biggest eye opener in the industry in the last 12 months?
I guess, just seeing the interest rates go so high and the values drop. Normally, especially in Dallas, you're going to show appreciation year after year. But I have sold some homes this year that people have not lived in them long enough and they took money to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, if you popped in them, yeah, and that's, again, a shifting market and they can be tough. I have heard a number of people that I respect a lot, kind of as industry spokespeople or industry leaders, that have also intimated a little bit that, maybe a little cooling off of prices isn't such a bad thing, right? Because you can't have post-COVID, 15, 20% year over year gains without something not great happening. Eventually, you're going to have to let a little bit of the air out of the balloon, or else we all know what can happen. I won't even use the word, but we all know what can happen. Um, yeah. What about 2026? Give me one thing you're anticipating for next year. Like, what do you think is going to be the big news in 2026?
I'm not sure really.
That, Pat, that in and of itself
Yes,
is an answer. And
Yeah.
that's a good answer. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I've heard some of the smartest people in real estate when asked that question said, how the heck am I supposed to know? I couldn't have told you what was going to happen 3 months ago, and I can't believe it happened. So I think not knowing and being, and I guess it speaks to all of us as professionals in this business. You kind of got to be a little nimble. You got to be flexible. You got to be willing to pivot. You got to do all the things that are going to be needed to be successful in a market. None of us know what the heck's going to happen next year. So I think that's a good answer and a very astute one. Okay. Anybody else want to share before we get into a little bit of safety talk? Okay. Well, we're a safety company and we take safety very seriously. And these calls are mainly about the market. And shoot, we've talked about luxury, we talk about all kinds of stuff, and we'll continue to do that. But we do want to touch on safety a little bit more than anything, just share experiences. And so I'm just going to throw this as a question out there. Has anybody had a safety experience, or at least like, has anybody been creeped out by anybody in the last year? Has anybody had kind of a bizarre and would be willing to share about it or heard about it in their office? I know they're happening out there because we can see that information all the time, and I'll warm us up and I'll talk about one. But be thinking about it because I'm going to come back to the group, and if you're willing to share something, it may not have happened to you, but we have a tether. We're starting to gather a lot of these stories, and we've got a tether agent. I may have mentioned this in the past. I'm not sure, from Maryland, who had a luxury buyer from Florida that had was going to look at a $2.5 million listing of theirs. Reached out online, goes back and forth online, never met them, and eventually we're kind of getting the brass tacks like, okay, they want to meet me in person at this listing, and I still don't really know who they are. And so this is not a Tether commercial, but we did use Tether to put their name in, and we discovered very quickly that the name associated with the cell phone number was not who they said they were talking to. Then they said that they lived in this luxury property in Florida, and that's how they could afford this one in Maryland. So we put the address of the property that they said they lived in Florida. Guess who doesn't live in that property? That dude. And so very quickly we were able to get to the bottom of, and it may have averted a potential waste of time. It may have averted an attempt at fraud, but what it definitely averted was this person meeting somebody face to face who was not who they said they were. And so, that was, I guess, if the takeaway there is, if you're on this call, you probably have Tether. And if you don't have Tether, maybe you've got another lookup feature. Use it. Like I was going to catch JB when she said, I had a lead come in that wants to see my property. And I almost stopped and said, hey, look him up before you go meet him. I'm sure she did. But use that in beyond lookups. Just know that there are things in the field now that you need to be safe with beyond lookups. Lookups are great, but people figure out ways around lookups. Now you're in the field. Now Tether's got these features, but even if you don't, just be thinking about the things that you need to do in the field to be safe, because these situations are happening so often and so fast, they almost don't get reported on like they used to, because it's becoming somewhat commonplace for people to be assaulted in an open house or worse. And so anybody have even a creeper story that they want to share? I know sometimes those aren't the
I have a
easiest
creepy
things.
story. I have a creepy
Oh,
story.
all right, Linda, lay it on us.
I had this lady call me and she wanted me to meet her. It was like late Friday, going down south of Atlanta, which I
Right.
really don't like working down there. But I said, all right, I'll go. But she just seemed a little sketchy. So I told and I didn't look it up. We have forewarned, but I wasn't even using that. And then I just felt a little uncomfortable. So when I got there, she's like, "Oh, my sister's coming to meet me." I was like, "Oh, really? You didn't mention your sister. Okay." So then since I felt a little weird, I was like, "Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open the door, let you in." I said, "Feel free to explore," because it was an empty house. I did not go in the house at all. The sister came, they went in, they're like, "Aren't you coming in?" I said, "Oh no, I'm on the phone, I'm doing some work." But in my mind, I'm like, absolutely not. Then the next thing I saw was a van without a license plate. I videotaped everything and took pictures.
Good for you.
It's parked right behind me, and then saw that I was in the car and drove off and stayed at the corner. So then they asked me again, "Are you coming in?" This is 40 minutes later. They don't need me to go into an empty house. So I said, absolutely not. They had their big pocketbooks. And I'm like, "Oh God, what do they have, guns in there?" She said they were sisters. I don't know. You can't tell, like, there's different shades of people, white and black and all different types of people, but these people were African American. I am too. One was really, really dark, 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 dark. One was as light as paper. And I was like, they could be sisters because I'm darker than my brother. My brother's really light, lighter than me. But this was a drastic change. I just didn't feel comfortable, so I never went into the house. I told my broker, I said, "There's no way I'm going into that house." So I didn't go. I just didn't go. I waited for them to leave. They took like now this at an hour point, they're like, "Are you coming in?" But what are they waiting for? The house was not
An
that big.
hour in an empty listing. Boy,
Hour.
that's a long time. So what happened in the end, Linda? Did,
I waited for them to leave and that van, of course, to leave. I waited
right.
15 minutes. Then I drove down the block just to see if anybody was waiting out on either side of the
Yeah.
street. And then I came back and locked up the house. Oh yeah, the driveway was it was a long driveway. First I went into the driveway, but it's only a one-way driveway. So I said, "You know what? I feel really uncomfortable. Let me leave the driveway and park in front of the house." Now, these other people parked right behind me. Why didn't they go into the driveway? It was just really bizarre. I just didn't go in, and I was just like, since I live in the Atlanta area, and then
Right.
all the realtors here, they do have guns. I don't. They're like, "You don't have a
Yeah.
gun. You need a gun in Atlanta with these people here," because there's a lot of like, um, you know, people supposed to
Yeah.
be kidnapping people and stuff like that, or
Right.
killing.
Well, good for you for having the sense to go with your gut. I think that
Yeah,
at
I
the
did
end of the
not go in
day,
and these were women. I'm a woman. I was a woman. I just didn't feel comfortable even with them. And it wasn't at all because of the color, because I'm black myself. And that's
right.
mostly all of my clients are black also. But I just felt
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. It just was crazy. Why are you asking me to, they asked me several
Yeah.
times to come into the house. Why?
The
Why?
interesting thing, and Scott, I'm going to get to you absolutely, but when somebody has an experience like this, and thank you for sharing, by the way,
I am getting a gun
it's
though, but I don't know when.
it's it sticks with you, right? It's thankfully nothing happened, and you're here telling us about the story, but it's a stress. It's a stress. Like you worry about it, you think about it. I can tell, and when you're talking about this, it's a thing, and it should be a thing, and so anyway, thank you for sharing, Scott Martin. You had something to add?
But I just wanted to say I don't think enough people follow their gut instinct like that because things keep happening. People go into showings, open houses, things like that. One of the things that as a Tether user, we don't want people to be afraid of hitting that button because those are live people. And the way we set it up is that in an instance like that, if you don't feel like if you're just concerned, we want you to always have somebody there with you. So just hit that button when you're feeling concerned and just ask them to stay on the line with you. They'll stay on the line with you, make sure that you don't need anything. But I think more people need to follow their gut instincts. A lot of people don't do that. They go into the house even though they don't feel confident. So, anyways, very
Yeah,
well.
that's a great point. And for those of you that aren't kind of familiar with that, you know, uh, Tether is a two-button app, and that red, I'm holding it up like you could actually see it. There's a red SOS alert button, and you just press that. If you're feeling you don't even have to be in danger. Like I just got a weird vibe because a 30-second timer starts, which I just pressed mine and there's now 21 seconds left. So I'm going to put in my safety code and turn it off. But if that timer runs out, then I'm going to get an immediate call from a live dispatch person. These are Tether dispatch people. We have dispatch agents across the country, and if you need help, they're going to connect you to the police. But you can even say to them, just like Scott said, you know what? I'm not sure. Like, I was supposed to just meet this lady, and now another person's here. And now what? Can you just stay on the line with me? These are our people, and they're trained to do that. And then if it escalates, they'll get police to your exact location. Don't, if you're a Tether user and your association's providing this, don't be scared to use that. It's there for you, and it's amazing. Yes.
So Brennan, I have a question. If I'm not mistaken, don't we share the tether for the showing with the buyer so that
You
their
can.
information comes in as well? Because I was considering, I have a process and it's not always 100%. I'm trying, but to ask for the ID. Like if someone calls me on a showing, it's like when you go to the doctor's office, they'll give you the clipboard. They ask you all these questions. You give them your ID and your health card or however, and then you see the doctor. So I'm trying to incorporate that process because it's very important to at least show the professionalism that what we bring and have that process in up front so that they respect us as agents. So if somebody calls me about a listing, I have my assistant. Let's say, okay, going to follow up and take your information, and then we ask for the ID, and now I can plug them into Tether and send them the confirmation of the showing. Is that how it can go?
Yeah, it's Scott. I'm going to let you answer that, but before you do, this is the confirmation of the showing question, Scott. But before you do, I just want to call out one thing. Good for you for getting the ID, right? And another trick you can always use is when you list a property, you can say to the seller, "Hey, would you prefer that I only show this property to people who I know who they are? Like I've verified that they're a safe person." The
Yeah.
seller's always going to say yes. Then when
Mm-hmm.
you go to your buyer, instead of asking for the ID and it's like you asking for it, you're saying, "Hey, my seller will only allow me to show this property to people that we've verified. Can I get a copy of your ID?" And they'll all give it to you. And it kind of removes the pressure of you asking for my sellers making me ask you. Does that, if
Well,
that make sense?
the buyer broker agreement that I'm asking for it on there
Oh, even
because I
better.
need to know if they signed it, who they are. I want them just
Well,
signing Mickey
that's
Mouse.
buyer broker agreements are good for that for sure. Okay, Scott
Mm-hmm.
Martin,
And
to
I
her
think
question.
and the reality is that should be just standard as part of the
Mm-hmm.
process. That these
Yeah.
people are going to go look at a property, and if they're unwilling to share information, that's
Yeah.
a red flag. Yeah, so when I mentioned when you put in your showings into the Tether app, you can share that with your buyer. When your buyer accepts that, we do capture information about them. We capture the
Okay.
unique identifier in the phone, things like that. Um, but we're trying to make that more user friendly because right now, when you start the showing, you're all going to be on the map together, and then you could put follow me, and it leaves a little breadcrumb. So if you're going through traffic or whatever, you don't have to worry about that because you can drive wherever you want, and they're just going to be routed to wherever you're going. When you
Okay.
show up to the properties that you put in, we have a safety timer that automatically starts based on geolocation when you get to the property. And as long as you leave within the window of time you put in there, it's standard at 45 minutes, but you can adjust that. It automatically shuts off. So it's another safety feature. The
Okay.
the buyer, they're going to have kind of limited functionality until we hopefully can integrate some of the property features with hopefully Broker Bay and possibly
Yes.
showing. So
Great, great answer. Great question. Great discussion. Thank you for both of you. Thank you for sharing. And we always try to end our calls with a little bit about safety because that's really why we're all here. And we want to see y'all here next month when we do a call. So um, All right. Well, we're up against it. Thank you all I hope you found value in this discussion. I learned like 5 things. And I'm not a practicing real estate agent, but I picked up some stuff that if I ever were, they're good ideas. So I hope you did too. Thank you all for taking the time. The recording will be out across the country here soon. And all of you have a wonderful, safe rest of the day and a wonderful holiday season.
Thank
So
you. You
thank,
too.
Thank you.
thank,
Take care,
thank you
everybody.
all.
Have a great
Of course.
holiday.
Thank
You
you.
got it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.